What's going on, guys? Chris here again with another Four Knights of the Apocalypse chapter review. And I have to say, while this one is not as bombastic in the action department as the last couple of chapters have been, this actually gets some theory juices flowing and also continues to beat us over the head with the idea of who Sin actually is, and even sets up this them crossing the mountain as an actual full-length arc, presumably roughly the same length as maybe the Kant arc or maybe the Sistana arc, if recent arcs have been to the same exact amount of length for the most part. Now, the one thing I have to say is that that there are people that are a little frustrated or just a little annoyed that we're 32 chapters in and we have not, and I repeat not, have gotten another member of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse on the main cast yet. And I will get into why I think that might not exactly be the case involving Sin as we go later down the road in this video, because I'm going to say speculations and stuff towards the end after I go over the chapter. But this chapter really gets a lot of things set up, as well as continues the whole who is Sin discussion in a very nice way, and I'll get into why a particular scene that I'll be talking about in this chapter is very important. But for now, we're going to end up talking about this exact chapter. Before that, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so it can say all, so you get notified for future videos. It really helps, and this channel is, again, really close to 800 subscribers, and I really, really want to get up to 1,000 subscribers. We are really close to reaching that goal, and these Four Knights videos are doing very well on the channel, all things considered. Within a week, these videos cross nearly 500 views almost consecutively, and sometimes even go beyond that, and it's just something that I'm just very happy and proud of, that people are actually enjoying the videos that I'm making and just enjoying my content. So I'm going to continue to be more proactive with these reviews, maybe even start doing more Four Knights of the Apocalypse theory videos in the future, or maybe just discussions in general, as well. It's basically the main series on my channel that's actually getting me all the views and subs at the moment. I mean, obviously older videos are contributing, but this is the most popular series of videos on my channel, so I really do want this series to continue going, and I want to keep covering it weekly every chance I get. And before everything else, don't forget to check out my Patreon for specific perks, whether it be the patron-only Discord server, special poll access, helping me decide on what videos to make, requesting specific anime and manga you'd like me to talk about, so on and so forth. And also a coffee account, which as of right now I'm not using too often, but if you really want to help this channel, leave a couple of tips. It'll really help me get these videos out sooner, as these videos do cost money, as I am hiring an editor or two to help with these videos. So I'd rather, make it worth their while to help with these videos so they can be the best that they can be. And with all that said and out of the way, let's get into the video. So last week we got the conclusion of the fight again with Hauser showing off his full power against the ancient dragon that was said to live in the mountain ranges. After that concludes, everyone reconvenes, and Percival obtains the dragon blade once more, the dragon handle that is a part of the Coffer of Eternal Darkness. But this time, Hauser uses the blacksmithing knowledge that he got due to the fact that his father was a blacksmith, and manages to craft Percival's very own sword onto the dragon handle, basically physically embodying that Percival is carrying on the torch and legacy of the 7 deadly sins of Meliodas visually, and I like it. It's a true passing of the baton, and I mentioned this in the last video. And in the last chapter also ended with a bizarre looking bird hovering over them, presumably monitoring them. And that's where we get into this next chapter, chapter 32, The Peaks of Fear. And I have to say, for the first page, we get a very nice scale of how wide this mountain range is in comparison to the rest of the cast. Everyone is getting presumably exhausted by climbing, Donnie trying to play it off as everyone needing to get more exercise, and that it isn't exactly a bit easier, but he's still playing it off like it's not that big of a deal. And and Sin says that they will reach camp. They will set up camp just before the peak so they can all rest. And as Nazians looks over, completely exhausted, as remember, he is still he mostly doesn't have much stamina. He's basically a frail kid in comparison to Donnie and Percival and even Anne, who have basically gone through intense training. Donnie and Percival, respectively, a bit more, most likely. Percival is on a league of his own, but yeah. We look over, and it seems that Percival is still in high spirits and in good shape, as he is practicing with his sword and is acting like a holy knight of justice. Practicing his sword moves, and even putting it back in the handle on his back to sheathe the sword like an actual knight would, and in the exact same position that Meliodas is. I mean, sometimes I swear, I feel like Suzuki is literally trying to say, hey, remember Meliodas? Well, this kid is a more energetic version of him. Just imagine Meliodas as a kid. And if he wasn't had all that responsibility of being the Demon King's son and started killing a bunch of people. Alright, but anyway. Back to the chapter. I like how everyone is mentioning that Hauser really inspired Percival to be a holy knight. And I'm really, really hoping we get a nice training arc once we reach Leonis, with them basically training with Hauser, presumably, and maybe even Gil Thunder, or maybe Meliodas himself will help train Percival. And I said this last week, but it would be really awesome if Percival learned full counter, revenge counter, and counter vanish from Meliodas now that he has a dragon sword and it works. But it makes more sense for Tristan, Meliodas' son, to have learned all these techniques. While it would be nice for both of them, in having two separate characters with the exact same technique, statistically would make a better pair, it's something interesting to look forward to. Anyway, we fast forward to nighttime, everyone's getting ready to go to sleep, and Sin actually says that basically there are a bunch of rumors and no one knows the truth about everything that goes on here on the Dalflare Ranges, as it was stated to be like a dark region, and everyone's questioning whether or not, Sin was lying or if he was just exaggerating. And with this, Sin begins to explain everything that he's heard about this range, the mountain range. That it's also known as the Peaks of Fear, and there are several stories about it, but they're more like rumors, and no one really knows the whole truth. And one of these stories is the Mirages, stating that supposedly the peaks could have spiritual powers to conjure up strange events, like seeing your future self, or meeting a lover you'll have later in life. And even Nazian points out it sounds more romantic than scary, and I like how Percival just straight up says that his grandpa said that girls like these types of stories, and Anne obviously says she wants to see herself as a holy knight. Sin continues on to say that there's a tale of a village of man-eating ogres who trick unwary travelers, or a dimensional cave that they can never escape from. Anyway, as Nazians and An are very concerned about these rumors, they tell everyone to go. Sin tells everyone to go to sleep, and as they're a little, freaked out over what's going on and what they were just told, they're finding it a little hard to sleep. But when Percival brings up that they should talk about something fun to lighten up the mood before going to bed, he brings up the topic of naming his sword in finisher moves, and everyone's just like, okay, time to get some sleep, as everyone just goes to sleep thinking that that's not the time for this, and they just feel like, and Percival literally just lifted the mood like that, so that's kind of hilarious. Anyway, we fast forward to later in the midnight, as Sin twitches, presumably like someone is calling to him. He goes a little farther out from the group, and he begins to see a woman in a dress supposedly staring him down and calling him. After asking who this lady is, we see panels noting that she is saying something, and it turns out this woman is stating Sin's real name, as Sin is literally in like a murderous look at her, stating, "How you know my name?" And we see this woman's full look, and then we fast forward to Sin waking up and sneezing, seemingly like this was a dream, or that the lady disappeared and he went back to bed, only to tell everyone in the morning. and wondering if anybody else saw something like that, and it was all in their dreams. They were all having a bunch of different dreams and stuff like that. And Sin, thinking back, realized that this was a bride. And this, I'm going to get back to this a little bit later, but for all we know, Sin was seeing his future, someone he's going to meet in the future. And if this ends up being a very important character for Sin to end up with, even if it's realized that he is really human, which everyone is, speculating, then that is something that I'm looking forward to seeing. As the group continues to go up to the mountain, we see a type of hiker looking down on them from the ridge, and I like how Nauseans is literally beginning to get insanely exhausted even more. And as Sin states that they are very close, they reach the top of the peak, and then when they're like, is this going to be Leonis? We made it? And then they see a giant ass mountain range, as they're all incredibly disappointed, stating that Sin was a liar, even though he said that this was a actual mountain range, and that the full trip is going to be 4 whole days. They're going to have to do this for 4 whole days in order to finally reach Leonis. As they're all incredibly surprised and disappointed, Nausean states that because of how he is and how he continuously gets tired compared to the rest of the others, they might end up doubling that by another 4 days. So they probably take about a week if they have to wait on Nauseans. And Percival, being the best friend ever, and actually making Nauseans blush a little bit, states that he'll just give Nauseans a piggyback ride. As we've all stated, Percival's got a boundless amount of energy, so I honestly I'm gonna find that hilarious when we see it. As Sin is stating for everyone to go, he notices this little bird from last chapter hovering above them. And as everyone continues to move on, we pass a nice branched forest, and as Percival goes on ahead, he states something very important. He's gotta take a whiz. And Donnie, being all serious, says he has to go too. And I like how they just start to take a whiz on the side of the road. Oh man, that's just hilarious. And then Donnie and Percival notice something, calling everyone over, and that it is a village just beyond those branches, those dead trees. And when they see a bunch of villagers waving at them, being all friendly and smiling. Nauseans and An say it's weird and creepy, and Sin even says that he senses an odd magic force right across from it. And being Percival and Donnie, they are a bit oblivious to what's going on, and they're like, a village is a village. But then the hiker that we saw previously starts running up to him and stating what the hell you're doing, and that they can't go over there, and the village is dangerous. As Sin, literally shocked and concerned, looks over and notices that Donnie and Percival are starting to head towards the village, running like a bunch of idiots. And I like this next panel, as Percival is just like, he's going to have a bunch of fun there, and Donnie just wants to have a bunch of ale. Sin rushes over to them, stating how much trouble they're in. And as we see them crossing, we notice little ripples in where they're crossing from these little stones, if you pay close enough attention. And Sin manages to cross over along with them. And as An and Nauseans are getting ready to go after them, the mountain man states that they shouldn't go in there, and they'll be stuck. And that village is no village at all, and that it's a den of monsters. With the last panel looking at a close-up of all the villagers with vacant black eyes, and in the back someone that might be a wizard of some sort. And that's how the chapter ends. And yeah, while this chapter didn't have any action, this really does do well for setting up this next arc, and I am all too excited to find out what is going to happen next. Now to get back to the middle of the chapter with Sin's little vision of the bride. This could actually tie into why he is secretly Lancelot. Now, in all honesty, one thing has been clear. Why is Sin only bringing Percival? Shouldn't he be looking for all of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse and bringing them all together? There are a multitude of reasons why he's not doing that and only taking Percival. One, Percival was the easiest one for him to find, and he figured it'd be better since they were close enough to Leonis to bring him. Another is that all the other 4 Knights are already in Leonis, being kept safe by Meliodas and Elizabeth. The third option is primarily, well, for one, Tristan is basically one of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse, and he is in Leonis. presumably with the final night, which we have no idea who their identity is. Leaving the idea that Sin might actually be Lancelot and is using his fairy powers to actually transform into an animal, which could play into the fact that he has a type of, that one of the four knights has no set appearance, and since fairies can't transform into humans, it's very possible that Lancelot turned into the form of a fox instead, making it easier for him to sneak around, which would be something very interesting, and also taking the form of a fox would be a way to honor his father Bon. But the thing is, in Arthurian legend, there is something that goes on with Lancelot with a bride. And one thing, if you remember, King Arthur gave Ironside an important task, which was to find him his bride, to find Arthur a bride. And a whole arc later, Sin imagines a bride. Now, if Sin is indeed Lancelot, then this could tie into Arthurian legend, where Lancelot ends up falling in love and having an affair of some sorts with Arthur's wife, which end up causing conflict, which obviously Leonis and Camelot are in fact in a major conflict and war right now, but this would basically make this even more heated, as Arthur most likely views getting a wife to be a bit more important than his goals at the moment. This could tie into his plans, but we still have no idea what he's really after. So this bride could in fact be Lancelot's future love, and being the idea that his real name is still being teased to us, I still think Sin is in fact Lancelot. Now, if this is proven wrong, then I'm a big dumb idiot. But this is basically a large consensus within the wider fan base, and while very obvious, Nakaba seems to be kind of milking it a bit, and from what I can tell, this is going to be the arc where we figure out Sin's true identity, and if it's Lancelot, I'll be all the more happy. If it's not, and it's someone else, then okay, it would probably be a pretty good reveal regardless. But yeah, we ended this chapter off seemingly in a realm of monsters, a village filled with monsters. And my thing could be, it could be one of Arthur's knights stationed there to make sure that Percival does not cross into Leonis and is using one of the Chaos Staves that we saw back in the Echo Gorge arc, where we introduced the Nazians, where that thing has chaos power and can chaosify a bunch of different people with that stored power of chaos. So all those villagers could actually be chaos creatures that this knight, or perhaps wizard if anything, is controlling to lure in travelers, and presumably Holy Knights of Leonis, who are trying to return back to Leonis after going off to fight Arthur's goons or going on missions outside of the borders of Leonis. And yeah, those are my theories. The bride that we saw could be Sin or Lancelot's, if Sin turns out to be Lancelot's future love interest, and also potentially love interest for Arthur if Suzuki goes full on with the Arthurian legend stuff, as well as the fact that this could be the arc where Sin finally reveals his true identity, and hopefully is Lancelot, one of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, showing that we have been actually with half of the core cast this entire time, leaving Tristan in Leonis, and the fourth and final member yet to be revealed to us, presumably in Leonis or in a future arc. And this whole idea of maybe a chaosified village to stop Holy Knights returning to Leonis and them being changed to capture Percival and the other four knights as they cross over is a really cool idea, and if that's true, I will be all for it. But yeah, a really great chapter, and I really hope a lot of these predictions are true. We won't find out until whatever's going on with the village until next week, and Sin's true identity probably another couple of weeks or chapters down the road, probably at the climax of this arc. But yeah, with all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe once more, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos, and leave your comments down below on your thoughts about Sin, and if he's Lancelot or not, if my predictions could be true, and what you think this arc is going to accomplish for setting up the future of the series. And one last thing before we go. Like I said before, I know a lot of people are a little upset that since the main cast is supposed to be 4 characters, the core main cast is supposed to be the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, just remember, it took almost 200 chapters, roughly 30 episodes, for us to get all 7 sins together. And even then, all sins weren't 100% together in the same place until season 3, until they go off to free Camelot from Zeldris and stuff like that. So yeah, all 7 sins weren't officially together until season 2, and then it wasn't until season 3 and season 4 where we would end up getting all the sins put together at once. But yeah, that's all I gotta say for this week's chapter review. Another good chapter, really sets up a lot of things, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you enjoyed the chapter. With all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoy yourselves and have an awesome day.